Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, as you will know, I am quite a fan of demonstrating the things that I am talking about in these videos in the emulator itself, be it a trap or a trick or a cheat or an emptier or even just the machine itself. I like to have actual gameplay footage, as it were, from the emulator itself demonstrating what it is that I'm talking about. Mentioned in the clowning around video that Cheerful Pessimist and On a Bucket don't always do that, where the ROMs aren't available, or in some cases where the hardware isn't even emulated. And I know On a Bucket did a video about the Electro coins. He just talked over a static image of the machine, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is a perfectly legitimate way of doing a video. I have watched those videos and I have enjoyed them, but for me personally, I prefer to demonstrate what it is I'm talking about in the emulator itself. But in the case of this machine, and indeed the whole genre of machines that I am going to talk about in this video, I cannot demonstrate it to you. The emulation technology simply doesn't exist, and it never will. It doesn't matter how much better Wizard ever makes multiple Fruit Machine emulator, unless he actually masters the art of coding a replicator, you know, Star Trek style. We're going to be limited, I'm afraid, to me talking about the thing in question. I'm guessing some of you have already worked out what this is going to be, but let's do the best job that we can with what we have available to us, because this machine here, What's on TV, is, well, I think it was just called What's On, actually, not What's on TV. And this is going to be the closest that we can get to actually demonstrating it in the emulator. So let's put a $5 in. I'm hoping it should be about ready to do what I want it to do. And yes, that's perfect. We only need 3 nudges. Now, what the observant amongst you may have noticed here is that this is looks like a pretty standard £6 bar crest from the day. We've got our win table there, mixed 7s, single, double, treble bars, blue 7s, and of course the familiar jackpot bar crest 7, which is a £6 token jackpot on this machine. But what's that little fella there? What is that symbol? My word. Well, let's see if we can get 3 of them. What I need to do here is land on a nudge pot. I need 1 more nudge, and I need to land on a nudge pot. Oh, that should do. Oh, where's that going? Oh, you shit, it just went straight away to the £6 jackpot. Well, that's fucking handy, isn't it? Thanks for that, you arseburger. Right, well, that's going to have knocked its happiness level back a bit, I think, isn't it? So, well, that's less. What I actually wanted was 3 of that thing there. I must have got it. I think I've got it a little bit overly happy, because it's very, very rare that it does that video jammed thing. We're going to have to play it a little bit more now. I won't subject you to this. I'll get it ready, and then we'll try that one again. Right, here we are. I only need 4 nudges, and for it to not do that ridiculous thing where my video jams and it goes all the way to the end. So let's just see if we can get it off this. We only got 2 nudges in the nudge pot at the minute, but it should add some more in. There we are. I've now got 4 nudges in the nudge pot. I just need now to land on an actual nudge pot. Where's my nearest nudge news? I'm going to have to go around quite a way. I've got a couple of TV licenses. Oh, that should be it. There we are. Right, so that'll take a license off me. Now then, watch what this is the best I can possibly do in the emulator to demonstrate this to you. So let's collect our nudge pot here. Nice little sample, that. So it's not a bad little sample package on this machine, I have to say. In fact, the whole machine itself is great. It's a really nice £6 AWP, but with this perplexing addition to it. So let's have that. There we are. So you see what it says in the alpha there, Tele Shopping. And what it's going to do now is invite me to pick a channel, which is actually select a prize. So I am going to select channel number 3 here with the F3 button. Oh, well, that fucked it. There we are. It's an emulator shortcut as well. And now what's going to happen is the emulator is going to shit itself. Oops-a-daisy. Prize motor alarm. Now, let's just load that back in, because that's going to be really annoying now. But you can see there, prize motor alarm, emulator's not happy, there's something missing here that is not emulated, and that's what I'll be talking about next. I'll just load this back in so we can get rid of that horrible noise. So there we are, loaded back in, it's still on the win line. Let's just play off these 5 credits so that it goes into attract mode, so that we've got some nice flashy lights going on. And then we'll go into the subject of this video itself. Now, at this moment in time, I think you're either going to remember these things or you are not. You're going to have to be of a certain age to be able to remember these, because this genre of machine, and it wasn't just Barcrest, that they were all at it for a short period of time, and I've got it in my head that this was only for a small amount of the £6 jackpot era. I do not think this existed at all in the £4.80 era. It didn't exist at the start of the £6 era. It was a little way into the £6 era that these things started, and then they killed them off fairly sharpish before the end of the £6 era, and then by the time we got into the £8 era, they had disappeared. The whole thing had been abandoned, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. So what the hell were these things? You're going to have to be, to have a recollection of these, you're going to have to be of a certain age, like I say, probably into your 40s like I am. If you're only in your 20s maybe, you'll have no recollection of these things whatsoever. And what they were is fruit machines that paid out real physical prizes. You can see there that Pook has put a selection of the kind of shit that you used to be able to win out of these things. Now, I have no idea where the idea for these things came from. I have no idea whatsoever who thought it up in the first place, and then who thought in the fruit machine company's hierarchies of management, or whoever signed off on this, said, yeah, that's a good idea, we'll go with that. Now, resources for these real machines are very thin on the ground. I've gone through the sort of gallery archives at Fruit Emu, the Mecca, Desert Island Fruits, and I've only been able to find one flyer. That's not to say that there's only one flyer out there for these, or photos. I've been looking for any photos or flyers of these, and I've only found one. So let's have a look. Thank you to whoever uploaded this to Fruit Emu, by the way. And that is an advertisement for what you can see there is a Ace machine, which is a riff on Grand National called Prize National, and it kind of explains it there. A sure starter every time, Prize National is the new concept in prize vending. The players are given the option to accept the £6 top jackpot or select the watch of their choice from the prize showcase. Now, the flyer here doesn't show it very well, but it was pretty much as tacky as you would expect. They basically just took the existing cabinets and stuck a really shitty little marquee on the top of them, made out like balsa wood and plastic, that they didn't look very good at all. And they had these little, you can see these little plastic boxes up on the top there, and in there would be, and to start with, it was just watches, and you would have a choice of 4 watches. This was how they often did it. There would be a gents and a ladies version of the same design of watch, and what usually happened is if you got a jackpot, you would have a choice to take either a watch prize or a real prize or your normal token jackpot. Well, they didn't all do that. As we saw here, What's On, which I think was one of the very, very few machines that was specifically designed to be a prize machine. Because with a lot of the other ones, like Prize National, that was obviously originally a Grand National, which they added, they kind of grafted the prize thing onto it. Whereas What's On, I never saw without, and Puka's obviously chopped it off the layout here. Maybe it was on the original flyer, but what would have been out of sight above the top of the cabinet here would have been the prize marquee itself. And I never saw one of these What's On machines without that prize marquee, which leads me to think that Barcrest actually designed this specifically to be a prize vending machine. Now, other ones that I can think of, they were kind of all at it. As we've established there, Ace were definitely at it because they had Prize National. Maygay certainly were. I have very clear memories of a Prize EastEnders. BWB were at it. I remember a prize version of one of their MPU4 video machines. JPM, again, very clear memories of playing a Popeye, which had the fucking prize cabinet put on the top of it. Project were in on it as well, although I only remember seeing a slight variation on the theme with them. But one way or another, pretty much all the manufacturers bought into this collective madness of having fruit machines that paid out really tacky prizes. Because the thing with these prizes is that their value was capped at £6. They couldn't be worth more than £6. They were treated effectively the same as a jackpot. So you've got to think, what kind of watch can you get for £6? And the answer to that is not a very good one. Now, when these machines first turned up, and I do remember them very clearly in the pubs of Radcliffe, one day we went to our local pub and they had a machine with one of these little prize marquees on the top of it, and me and my friends were slightly bemused and a little bit intrigued, and we played it because, as we always played machines, me more than anybody else, and we were kind of going for one of these watches. We're kind of like, okay, let's try and get one of these watches out of it, which we did. And you select your watch. You either had the light would kind of pan across, so it'd light once you got into a position where you could select a prize, it'd go dum 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 dum, and you pressed the collect prize button. Others of them actually had specific buttons. You can see there on what's on, when I had the line of symbols before, I just selected which channel I wanted, and that would correspond to one of those boxes. But either way, what would happen is you'd select your prize, and then they must have fitted an extra kind of tube or payout dispenser, because it actually spat out a cardboard box into the payout tray, which contained your real prize. So we got one of these watches out of a machine eventually, got it out of its box, and were like, wow, this is really, really cheap and tacky. Doesn't come across in the picture here. They've obviously done the best they can to make them look respectable, but these were the cheapest, nastiest, most awful watches you have ever seen. Some of them, I think, were dead on arrival. They didn't even work when they were first paid out of the machines. One of them, I think that we had a watch and the battery lasted like a week, something like that. They didn't keep time properly. They'd lose like 10 minutes overnight. They were absolutely dreadful. And we soon learned to hate these machines with a passion. Now, it wasn't so bad where you could choose if you wanted the prize or not. So for this one here, Prize National, it does say that, and I think you had to get the 3 red 7s. Once you got your 3 red 7s, it's like, do you want your jackpot or do you want your prize? And that was fine, because you could just say, oh God, no, don't give me another one of them fucking watches. I'll take me £6 tokens, thank you very much. But for others, you couldn't really avoid them. Sometimes they had specific symbols, or sometimes they would integrate it into the repeater so that you couldn't avoid getting the prize. And this comes down to, who on earth would ever want this? Because if you think about it with a watch, if you need a watch for any reason, you're going to have one. If it's important to you to be able to tell the time, you are going to be in possession of a watch already. Now, you've got to remember here, we are talking the early 1990s. So, of course, it's not like now when everyone's got a mobile phone with them pretty much all the time, which doubles up as a watch or a clock. Back then, if you wanted to be able to tell the time on the move, you had a watch. And if that was important to you, you already had one. And if your watch broke and you had to buy a new watch, you just go to a shop that sold watches and get one. be an expensive jeweler if you were of that mind, or like Argos or Index if you just wanted a cheap digital watch that worked. Or maybe you would upgrade from a cheap watch to a nice watch. Either way, the single thought process that I think has never happened in the history of the entire world is someone somewhere in the UK thought to themselves, you know what I need? I need a new watch. What I'm going to do is get down to the pub and start playing that bloody prize national fruit machine and see if I can pay £25 for a shit £6 watch that either won't work in the first place or will break after a week. And that was the thing, they had all kinds of horrible cheap metal coatings on them which would come, I mean, if you dared to put one of these things on, it was like poisonous metals and paints were leaching into your skin from whatever dreadfully cheap factory these things had come out of. And it wasn't just watches. Early on, there was a selection of different things. There was watches, there was cufflinks, and there was lighters. They're the three things that I remember. Now, the cufflinks, where do you even start with getting cufflinks out of a fruit machine? The lighters, I could kind of get on board with a little bit more. I mean, obviously you could smoke in the pubs back then. A lot of people did smoke. I mean, that was no use to me and my friends because none of us smoked. But okay, if your lighter was bust or whatever at a stretch, you might think, oh, well, that's handy. I can get a lighter out of the fruit machine. But even then, it's the same as watches. Anyone who wants a lighter has probably got one. And this continued for a few months, and as I say, me and my friends were just horrified by the things. We avoided them as best we possibly could, in terms of we would never ever take the prizes. Once our initial kind of curiosity with it had gone, you know, we'd collected maybe a watch or two, we'd collected some of the cufflinks or whatever it may be, and then we avoided the prizes at all costs, and we would never take them. And generally speaking, you could avoid them. It didn't have a way of kind of forcing them onto you. But then it evolved a little bit, and they started going down the route of paying out super tokens, which could be exchanged at the bar for a selection of prizes. Now, one that I very, very clearly remember having this was a Bullseye, a Project Bullseye, that integrated this super token into the Bullseye repeater. If you know on the Bullseye machine where when you hit the bull off the feature, you get a £3 or a £6 repeat chance. So if you hit the bull, it goes £3 or £6, and if you miss, the repeater's over. Well, what this thing did was it added in a super token into the prize pool on the Bullseye. So when you hit the Bullseye for the first time, I think you always got the £6, but on subsequent hits of the Bullseye, it would give you £3, £6, or a super token win. And what these super tokens did is they removed the need for the machine to pay out the actual physical prizes itself, because what happened in pubs where they paid out these super tokens is they would literally have, and I'm not making this up, they would effectively have a bin bag full of shit behind the bar that you could choose from as your prizes. None of it could be worth more than £6. And if you got one of these super tokens, you'd go up to the bar and say, right, I've got one of these tokens out of the machine. Can you show me what prizes you've got, please? And they would produce this bin bag, this sack full of shit, and you'd have a rummage through and pick out whatever awful item it was that you, well, inverted commas, wanted as your prize. And I remember in the Knowsley in Bury, I was in the Knowsley in Bury in whatever year it was, 93, 94, and I hit a Bullseye on a streak. The Bullseye machine in there streaked. 20p £6 jackpot, and it streaked, and it basically hit the bull 6 times. So I think I got my initial £6 jackpot, which you always got when you hit the bull. It then hit the bull another 5 times and gave me a super token every single time. So I then had, and think about that, that's your whole streak there. That would be a great streak if it was paid out in tokens or in cash, but instead I had £6 tokens and 5 of these super prize tokens. So I was then left going to the bar and saying, okay, I've got 5 of these super tokens. Can you show me what you've got, please? And she dutifully got the bag of rubbish out from behind the bar, and I had a rummage through it to pick what I could. And in all fairness, we got 2 half-decent things out of there. In fact, thinking about it, this must have been back into the second half of '94, because I was in there with Mrs. Degsy. And 2 of the things that we picked that were actually halfway useful was a hairdryer, a £6 hairdryer, and a little clock radio. And then the 3 other things, there was nothing else that we wanted. So what I then did, because the pub was quite busy, I then went around the pub and basically started hawking whatever was in this bag. So I kind of got an inventory of what was in the bag, then went around the pub and said, hey mate, do you want to buy whatever it was they had in there? I honestly can't remember. And ended up selling like the other 3 things the other 3 prizes of stuff that I had, I was then selling for like £4 or £5 cash. So I turned my £6 super token into an item of rubbish out of this bag, which I was then selling to patrons in the pub. I think I managed to get £4 or £5 each for them. But the hairdryer and the clock radio actually lasted for quite a long time. The hairdryer worked for years, and there was nothing wrong with it. Even though it was a £6 hairdryer, it actually worked okay, and myself and Mrs. Degsy got a reasonable amount of use out of it. And again, the clock radio, and it was a cheap little thing. You had to put some batteries in it, and like a liquid crystal display, but it was it was a passable little battery-powered clock radio. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. So these super tokens, they did expand the prize pool, because they weren't then limited to things that they could physically fit in these little cardboard boxes in the machine. That was the problem with the first generation of these prize machines, the one that looked like that. Basically, the prizes had to fit in boxes, little cardboard boxes, that the machine itself could pay out. So that was why they were limited to watches, cufflinks, lighters, and small things like that. Once they went down the super token route, I guess it was just an extra tube inside the machine that held the super token itself, and then that allowed you to go to the bar and then choose from a selection of prizes. But even then, you would never do that. And I remember on one occasion getting a token or 2 that I couldn't avoid for whatever reason, going up to the bar, and the kind of the bag that they had, the bag of prizes, was pretty sparse. I think they were waiting for a restock. Oh, sorry, we haven't got much in at the moment. You can just choose out of what we've got, or if you come back, in a couple of days, we'll have more stuff to choose from. So they were limited by that as well. And another clear memory that I have is on a BWB MPU4 video game. Can't remember which one it was. It was one of the earlier ones before they got the samples. And I got boxed red 7s. Now, on this BWB video game, red 7s were the £6 jackpot, and boxed red 7s were an actual prize. One of these super tokens, and not quite sure why I did it, but one way or another I got boxed red 7s for a super token, and it held like 3 times. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, of course, what I should have done is just not got the boxed red 7s in the first place, and certainly not held them, because the value would have still been in the machine and I would have been able to get it out in cash or tokens. But early 90s me was just saw box red 7s on offer, and even though I knew it was the super token, I didn't really want it. I thought, well, I better take it, because otherwise I might not get anything. Ended up with, again, 4 of these super tokens, and faced with going up to the bar and picking out from a load of shit that I wasn't interested in. So I've no idea where this idea came from. I've no idea who thought it was a decent concept. My only suspicion is that fruit machine manufacturers felt that they were struggling a little bit with small jackpots, because the jackpot had been going up very, very slowly. Once we got out of the £10 era, things accelerated a little bit, because £10 all cash was the first all cash jackpot, and that was a pretty big deal in itself, that you had a £10 cash repeater. And then things accelerated at a fair rate of knots through 10 to 15 to 25 to 35 to 70 and now to 100. So the rate of expansion, if you will, or the rate of increase in the jackpot has been quite dramatic. Whereas back in these early days, we went from £3 to £4, then to £4.80, and then to £6. So the jackpots had been quite small for quite a while, and we were of course limited to £3 cash repeaters, all wins over £3 being paid in tokens. So maybe someone thought it was a good idea to try and kind of spice up the prize pool and make them look a little bit more glamorous and exciting by giving them the ability to actually pay out these real prizes, but they were of course limited by them being worth no more than £6. And towards the end of their tenure, I was thoroughly fed up with them. Out with Mrs. Degsy down in Altrincham, we got the Metrolink down to Altrincham to have a bit of a pub crawl around the pubs of Altrincham. That's where they had, in fact, that is where they had the prize Popeye, and that had the marquee, that had the older style marquee up the top, where you had, and all that had was a selection of lighters. And I can't remember how I got that. It must have been one where I couldn't avoid it, because I was very, very sort of deliberately trying to avoid getting these super tokens or these prizes at all costs. But one way or another, I ended up with a couple of them, and was trying to, because neither me or Mrs. Degsy smoked, so we're trying to work out what to do with these lighters. And Mrs. Degsy, bless her, was like thinking of people that she knew in her halls of residence who smoked. I said, oh well, what I'll do is I'll take that lighter because Susie'll have that. And I mean, if you can, it's the worst thing. So Mrs. Degsy was, these fucking lighters were coming out of this machine. Mrs. Degsy was giving me a £5 cash for them, on the premise that she was going to take them back up to her halls of residence and try and sell them to the people that she knew there that smoked. I guess because I think we'd been going out for long enough by then for her to know, which way the wind was blowing when we were out at the pub. And so what she was seeing, of course, was money going in and lighters coming out. And it wasn't even as if, at least with tokens, if you hit a token run, you could go to the bar and buy drinks with them. So, and that would sometimes happen, where I'd get, 10, 12 quid of tokens out of a machine. And then what we could do is just stay in that pub and buy more drinks with the tokens. Well, what the fuck are you going to do with 2 or 3 lighters? You can't take them to the bar and do anything with them. So Mrs. Degsy did purchase those lighters from me, and then said, okay, don't worry, I can get rid of these in my halls of residence. So these were a bizarre appearance in the world of fruit machines. They really were. And if you weren't playing fruit machines and you weren't aware of fruit machines for this small period of time in the £6 era, because I'm saying that these things were not around for more than a couple of years. They weren't around for the whole £6 era. It's just like a mid-section of the £6 era. And whilst there were a lot of them, and kind of nearly all the manufacturers got on board, this one here, What's On, is the only one that I can think of that appeared to be specifically designed to be a prize machine. All the others that I can sort of picture in the memory banks, as it were just kind of conversions of existing machines, and they kind of grafted the win on for the prize. However, some of them added different symbols, some of them made it a choice when you get a jackpot. With BWB, they kind of delineated between a red sevens win and a box red sevens win. But either way, there are a lot of these around, and then all of a sudden, they just disappeared. They kind of disappeared en masse. It was like all the kind of distributors or suppliers or manufacturers or the pubs, or it's like they all got together and agreed that they were just going to get rid of these things, on a certain date. We're going to get rid of them all as quickly as we can, because I guess by that point, of course, They were having to keep these bags of shit behind the bar stocked up. They were having to replenish the machine with stocks of watches and lighters. And that was the other thing. In fact, thank you, Pook, because you have just reminded me now. That's the other thing that you could get in them. Really, really cheap jewellery. Because again, they would fit in those little cardboard boxes, and you'd get, as you can see it, rings and strings of fake pearls and little bracelets, all kinds of just utter awful crap that could not be worth more than £6. And heaven help you, again, if you, a little bit like with the watches, if you actually put one of these things on, all the metal kind of, well, probably wasn't even metal, would just come off and stick to your arm, and then you'd need some kind of industrial cleaner to get it off you. They were awful, awful things, and I think maybe the industry collectively realised it, or they got enough negative feedback, or it was just obvious that everyone hated the things. So almost as quickly as they'd arrived, within the space of a week or two, I remember these things. They were kind of all over the place to an extent. You know, they were a fairly common sight, and then within a week or two they'd all gone. Every single one just disappeared and was replaced with normal fruit machines. Or the other thing I think they did was they just removed the prizes. Maybe there was like a dip switch setting in them or something like that, but what you found for a short period of time was that these little marquees at the top there would be empty. There was no prizes in them, and they changed a dip switch, or they changed a ROM or something like that. And what then happened is it just became a normal £6 token jackpot fruit machine. The prize element was removed. But even then, these kind of empty machines didn't last for very long. And within a short period of time, it was honestly like they never existed at all. They just disappeared. Now, if anyone has any other flyers or photos of these machines, a little bit more evidence that these things existed, because if it weren't for the fact that I found this flyer on Fruit Emu, I'd have no actual kind of tangible proof that these machines ever existed. I'm guessing there must have been more around. I'm sure I've seen a picture in one of the Fruit Machine emulation sites galleries at some point over the years of a Prize East Enders. I can't find it now. If you have a look at the release notes for this What's On layout, which incidentally was 25th of December 2003, so a little Christmas present from Pook there back in 2003, he explicitly thanks Spar for the flyer there, so that obviously tells us that there was a flyer for this machine at some point, which hopefully would show that prize marquee. But if any of you have any photos or flyers for any of these machines, if you could send them on to me, please. You can grab me over at Desert Island Fruits, or just leave a comment in the video of how we can get in touch with each other. Because if I can get a few of these together, you know, other photos or flyers, I will happily do a little extra kind of follow-on video for this. I don't know if you've noticed, but I try and do a new sort of Fruit Machine emulation / Fruit Machine video for release every Friday, and then anything that's online slots or stuff like that, I will kind of do as an extra video out of loop, as it were. So if I can get some photos and flyers together, I'll do a quick follow-on video, but I'll do that as a sort of midweek video or a supplemental video, and I won't make it a full weekly release. But I would be fascinated to see more stuff like that. So if anyone out there knows of any flyers or photos, please do let me know, because they would be great to look at, and we can just kind of ponder on whoever thought that this was a good idea and that this was something that people wanted. Because I remember not only just me and my circle of friends, but the whole thing, this whole prize fruit machine, because you've got to remember, fruit machines got played back then. Everyone was playing them. Not like today where you can be in a pub for several hours and nobody goes near the fruit machine. Back in these days, the fruit machines were getting played all the time, and everyone was just thoroughly fed up with these things. I don't recall anyone having anything positive to say about this whole fiasco whatsoever. It was, as best as I can recall, universally hated by everyone, and the pubs didn't like them either, because they had to keep these bags full of crap behind the behind the bar. They had the problems of the payout mechanisms, these stupid cardboard boxes not working. They were prone to jams and all that sort of thing. So it was a bizarre episode in the history of fruit machines, never done before, and thankfully never repeated since. We have never seen its like ever again, and that is something I am very grateful for, because they really were the worst things imaginable. And I would also like to just say thank you to whoever it was who left a comment on a video, oh god, 6 or 8 weeks ago now, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but someone did leave a comment suggesting that I could make a video. Do you remember those fruit machines that paid out watches? And I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. I'll get round to that one day. So I'm sorry, I have forgotten your name, but whoever it was who left that comment, thank you for that, because I have now got around to making the video about the days when fruit machines paid out watches, jewellery, lighters. Oh, did they pay out tiny little radios as well? It's possible that tiny little, miniature electronic devices could be found in the little cardboard boxes as well. So, not a glorious chapter in the history of the fruit machine, as far as I am concerned, but it's definitely, I think, a historical curiosity. So that's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed watching it, and I'll catch up with you next time. But for now, goodbye.